What's going on, family and friends, everyone out there in podcast land? My name is Dave Smith, and this is Tough Conversations Podcast, the podcast where me and my guests discuss tough topics from different points of view to understand the issues at large. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can follow us on Instagram at ToughTalk_PDT. That again is ToughTalk_PDT. To interact with us in our weekly polls and to get more information on the guests that I'm going to have come through this season. Yo, what's going on, people? Had to get that brief introduction out the way. If it sounds like I'm talking fast, it's because I am kind of jazzed up on hot tea right now because my throat is a little... So on today's podcast, we will be discussing understanding mental health and therapy. And today I am honored to have as my guest the beautiful, the intelligent, the just she the bomb, y'all. She the bomb. To have on my podcast the beautiful, the intelligent, just overall the bomb, Kourtni Talley. Yo, Kourtni, what is going on?
Hello. Hi. It's so weird being the guest. I love it. Hey, everybody.
Yeah. So for many who don't know, I've been on Kourtni. How long have we been knowing each other? For about a good 3 years now?
Yeah, because it was since the pandemic, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been on Kourtni for about 3 years now, and it's crazy how friendships work and how friendships help other friendships, because I didn't know Kourtni through a friend, through another friend. I just, we just so happen to be collabing on things. And then come to find out she knows some of the, I won't say friends because they're like brothers to me, but she knows some of the brothers that I have. Mm-hmm. And so we became friends before even knowing that. And it's crazy just how, small the world is, especially when you grow up in the same state, grow up in the same city and things of that nature. It's just small. You know, so I'm gonna get out the way and I'm gonna let Kourtni tell a little bit about herself and just speak on her background a little bit, and then we're gonna get into our podcast in the first segment that we like to do. So, Kourtni, the floor is yours.
Okay, no pressure. I'm Kourtni. I am a clinical social worker and I'm also a therapist. I work at 2 locations. I recently graduated with my MSW in 2022 in April. It feels like a long time ago, but it was not even a year not a year yet, at least. So I'm a therapist full time. I do have my own podcast, Complainers Corner, and that's pretty much it.
And Complainers Corner is where it's at.
And I got a dog. Shout out to my baby Jabari. Yeah.
Yo, shout out to the dogs. Shout out to the loyal dogs out there. For real. But yes, so for many who don't know, you should know, because if you follow me and follow any of the things that I post on social media, Kourtni's podcast, Complainers Corner, is actually... So Kourtni helped me get into podcasting quite a bit, honestly. Like, she really laid the blueprint. And it's funny because we was just having this conversation yesterday about just the ins and outs of podcasting and the ups and downs, highs and lows, things of that nature. And it's so funny because I contribute much of, podcasting to, the Lord. Thank God for having this platform. But thank God for putting people like Kourtni in my life to be able to show me the way to go about things. Because, man, when I tell y'all that I was procrastinating so heavy, and it literally took Kourtni for her to be like, listen, this is what you do. You got to do X, Y, and Z. And so, like, she was a tremendous help. And I plan to push that information forward. So people who are, want to get into podcasting, it don't need to be no big secret. I know a lot of people in the community, they like to be like, oh, you got to figure it out yourself. Nah, bro, listen, it's not that kind of party over here.
No.
Spread the information as it comes and, help somebody. So they ain't got to struggle like, probably how you had to struggle and a little bit of me. Cause like, I didn't want to bug her too much with questions and stuff. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just.
It's confusing, like in the beginning, especially if you don't have any experience with like audio and all that type of stuff, and
Facts.
figuring out how to merge sounds and do this, and you hear this, and it's like it's too much.
Facts. We was just talking about that yesterday, and before we even started the podcast, I was just like, I figured out how to do this, and she like, yeah, I know. So once again, Kourtni, Talley, thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for divulging your time to be here so that we can discuss mental health and therapy. I told her yesterday, for everybody listening, I told her yesterday I was going to throw a curveball at her today. So I introduced a new segment on the show a couple weeks ago when I interviewed or podcast with my dad. If you guys haven't got a chance to listen to that podcast, please go listen to it. That was the second episode of Tough Conversations podcast. Really great episode concerning Christianity and the church today and things of that nature. Shout out to my father, Pastor Michael Smith, pastor of Life Enhancement Christian Ministries, located in the city of Detroit, Michigan, the place where I'm birthed from, the place where I'm from, what up? If you haven't got a chance to listen to that podcast, go listen to it. But the segment that we introduced on that episode was Post of the Week. And so what I do is I find, as I scroll through, Instagram, Facebook, whoever, I find posts that seem controversial, and I bring those posts to the podcast so that we can discuss them. This post has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. So I thought, throwing this curveball at you that it would help. And I think it will. So I'm going to read you the post.
Okay.
And I was going to show it to the camera, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that just for my lighting in here is kind of weird. But the post says, very simple, 2 sentences. It says, he didn't waste your time, sis. He got to know you and didn't like you. So I'm going to just start off by saying that post hit me in a very weird way, because I think a lot of men or a lot of women struggle with men in that concept that women feel like a dude talking to them for a little, however much time it was, that, that constitutes things, automatically shifting, in their favor. And for me, I've been in situations like that where it's like, you take time to get to know somebody and then you realize, like, what, we're really just not compatible. Like, you going one way and I'm going a different way. Or the way you like to go about things is not really necessarily the way I like to go about things. And it's not that those things can't change, but I don't foresee you changing them because your actions and the things that you do don't really show that you want to make that change. And so I feel like that's a hard concept, even for men. Sometimes men get, not to throw it just on the women, but even men sometimes get, into that mentality of, oh man, she ghosted me and this and this and whatever the case may be. If you're that type of man. Now, if you're not that type of man to care about if somebody ghosted you, then, to each his own. But
yeah,
that's my thoughts on it. Kourtni, how do you feel about that?
How do I feel about that? I don't know. Honestly, it just
curveball.
Yeah, it is. Truly, you weren't lying. How can I say this? I think it depends on the situation and like what happened with the situation. So like sometimes we do have to take responsibility for the fact, like, truly, well, people can waste your time. That's the truth. But sometimes you have to take responsibility for how you react to a person who's showing you that they're not necessarily concerned about you, about the relationship, about the situation that you're in. So there is that. However, I think that once you figure out you're not interested in a person and you're like, okay, I'm ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
If it's been more than, I would say, 3 months, then they deserve some type of conversation. Now you can't be like, okay, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm like, you wasted my time. And it's like, no, we're just getting to know each other. So like, there's no time to be wasted because you could have decided to engage with somebody else. I mean, I can't tell you not to, but I don't know. I think a lot of times when people feel like that is because they've been in a relationship with somebody and they felt like they were given more than what the other person was.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you don't want to be with me, but you're still like engaging with me. You want to go here, you want to do this. It's like you don't like me for real. You just
Hmm.
like not being by yourself. And so like that's one thing. So I think that people can waste your time if they're being dishonest and like deceitful, but at the same time you have to decide like, okay, you're not about to play with me like that. Like you're done. You know?
Yeah. No, and that's something I had to face too. Like reaping the benefits of what a relationship or what having this person time means versus like being cognizant of like everything that's going on
Right.
and really putting yourself in that place to be like, okay, I'm really being watchful of, how I go about with this person and not doing too much to where they feel like I am wasting their time, or I'm going to be wasting their time, or I'm taking things away from, because time is something that we really can't get back.
Yeah.
And um, for anybody to feel like you wasted their time, if you a man with a heart, that's gonna hit you deep. And when somebody tell me something like you wasted my time, I'm gonna feel some type of way and be like, dang, really start thinking about the fact that this person feels like I wasted their time. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. So, like I said, I was gonna throw that curveball at you.
It was one. I ain't gonna lie to you. It
So
was
for everybody who's not, when you listen back to this and you're not watching the video from this and you're just watching and you're just listening to it, Kourtni is a master of facial expressions. Like when I thought I was the master of facial expressions because literally people tell me all the time that a lot of stuff you say be funny, but it's the facial expressions that you have. Like Kourtni got me beat because her facial expressions just be like, "Why did you do that?"
I can't help it. I try. Well, I don't try no more, but I did when I was younger. It just don't work for me.
She
Yeah,
wears her emotions on her face, y'all. It's
I do.
hilarious.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. So, getting into our topic today, which is understanding mental health and therapy. I just want to start off with a quick question. Well, not really a quick question, but I want you to talk to people about what is therapy and who is therapy for, because a lot of it is misconstrued and a lot of it is misinformation. So, you know, just to start off with that, what is therapy and who is it for?
Um, Therapy is for everybody. A lot of people don't like to believe that therapy is for everybody. I won't necessarily put the responsibility on individual people because for a longest time, like mental health and mental health services were really for people with severe mental illnesses. And they weren't always treated the best or regarded in the best light. So there is that. But therapy is for everybody, and therapy can look a lot of ways. I think that people think you just go to a therapist, you sit down, you talk, you leave, and then somewhere, somehow you're magically healed or changed. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. It can be CBT therapy, which is basically saying the way that you think affects how you act and how you behave and how you perceive things. You can have DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, which is more like a course, like a class almost, and it teaches you
Mhm.
communication skills, coping skills, distress tolerance, like a whole mindfulness, like a whole bunch of stuff. You also have acceptance therapy. You can have EMDR, which is for people who have a lot of trauma and they need to process that trauma. You have art therapy, dance therapy. Therapy can just look like a multitude of ways, but it's really just you meeting with somebody who is a licensed mental health professional. Empathy,
Got to throw that out there.
right? Like your cousin who's been through some things that like made courses on Instagram does not count. A licensed mental health professional to be an unbiased opinion that can give you tools that you need to make your own decisions. Because therapists don't make decisions for you, but we can give you the tools and the insight that you need to make an informed decision. So that's what therapy is. That's what therapy for. And I just want people to know you don't have to have like a super traumatic thing happen to you to then qualify to go to therapy. A lot of the people that I see, I don't even think necessarily knew what they were going to therapy for exactly, or that they really needed the services. But like they always come for something random, and it's like always something super surface. And then as you get to know them more and kind of uncover the layers, they're like, oh, maybe I have more than just this. Like, yeah, I heard that from the first session, but I can't say that, you know? So yeah, anybody can go. And if you don't think it's something like really acute, like really severe, I would say go to a private practice person, because you have more leeway, especially with making diagnoses and pay and all that type of stuff.
That's fair, and that's a great explanation. Because as far as what I understand about therapy and what I understand about who it's for, you really embody that in your definition, especially the part where it's not, you have to go to a licensed professional. You don't want to go to cousin Pookie Bookie and
Yeah.
Auntie TT and all them. Like, although they probably been through some of the same things that you've been through, and although they probably been through, they live life longer or have lived life longer than you need to go to a licensed professional because they know about, like you said, CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, if I'm not mistaken. And get that other side of things, because the thing that TT and them know is very surface.
Right.
They go, and it's very biased because they're going to give you what they feel looked right for them, but right for everybody is different. Ethically is different. So I'm glad you brought that point up, because that's like, a lot of people feel like, oh, I can just go talk to grandma, or I
No,
can just go talk to
no,
ma, and that's going to solve my issues, and that's going to make everything better. But that's not the truth. Like, you have to go see a licensed professional and speak to them about these things.
it's literally their whole job. Yeah.
For real. So, what is one of the misconceptions about mental health and therapy? Because you talked a little bit about that, saying that people wait until they feel like they've been through like extreme trauma in order to go seek therapy. So is that one of the misconceptions, is that you have to wait until you go through something truly traumatic in order to seek therapy?
Yeah. Like people, again, we have stigma around mental health and mental illnesses and all this. But people really do think like they have to be something like super excruciating happening. And they also think that if something was good in one area, then it's not enough for them to seek assistance in another area. Like if you have a grandparent, right? Let's say you were raised by your grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma is nice. She makes sure you have everything you need, your clothes, your shoes. She provides meals for you. You can do extracurricular activities, but grandma never cared about how you felt. Grandma never gave you a hug. Grandma never said it's okay to cry, never did any of that. And so because like, oh, I have my basic needs, people feel like, well, what am I going to therapy for? Like, it wasn't that bad. And it's like, okay, yeah, kids need shelter, food. Those are basic necessities, but
Right.
emotional care is also an important part about growing up. Or if they feel like it wasn't severe because other people have it worse, there's always somebody doing better than you, and there's always somebody doing worse. But that don't mean you don't get to complain about what's going on with you. And so I think that people kind of discount their own experiences because they think it has to be some extreme thing, and people don't necessarily come to treatment until they get to like that breaking point, or they just can't tolerate whatever is happening. And I think that sometimes too, you kind of get accustomed to not feeling your best, and I wouldn't say being happy, but just not being productive, not waking up and being grateful. Like you just get used to not feeling well. And so to a certain point, you don't even acknowledge it anymore. So I do think that's one big misconception. One, I think too, is people think it's a one size fits all when it comes to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
You literally can like a therapist and then decide that you want to move on. You can literally decide, like, okay, they took me through this journey. I want to find somebody else. You can confront your therapist and say, I don't like that you said that. If they give you an assignment, you don't have to do it. It's like you really can make that experience as individual as you would like. It's up to your therapist to have evidence based interventions to kind of meet you where you're at. And I think people think once you go to somebody, that's just it, like you're stuck, but that's not necessarily how it works. So thinking of therapy as a one size fits all, not thinking that they can go unless something really severe happens. And then I also think that people just really don't understand what mental health is like and how it can take a toll on how you show up. Because a lot of times, and myself included, people can be guilty of making their mental health and their self care like a last on the totem pole or last on the priority list. Like I hear people say all the time, like, okay, once I do this or once I have this in line or once I do that, then I'll take the time for myself. Then I'll start working out. Then I'll start doing this. Then I'll have more time.
Yep.
And in a very real sense, life never stops. And that time slot can always be filled up with something else. So until you decide to intentionally make the time won't exist.
Right.
But people don't get that. Like, oh, well, it's not that important. Yes, it is. Your self care is about one of the most important things you can do. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to go to the mall and buy me some shoes or, oh, I'm going to go have a massage. Mental health is making sure you go to bed on time. Mental health is making sure you go to your doctor's appointments. Mental health is making sure you brush your teeth. Mental health is making sure you manage your finances appropriately. Like all of these things that can take care of yourself and help you to become a well-rounded person. Mental health is having hobbies. Mental health is having good relationships with friends and families if they are not toxic people. It's okay to hate your families. It really is okay to hate your family. Sometimes you need to hate them so that you can get to the point where you can love them. But people just, they be thinking like, oh, well, I don't have time to get a massage or go do this. Like, it don't have to be this abstract thing. Mental health really could just be you eating, I don't know, eating some lettuce and some broccolinis. Like, some water. Like, girl, you need to be drinking water. I've known you for 3 years. I ain't never seen you pick up no glass of water. I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all of those things. It don't have to just be this one thing. So I think those are the three biggest things. Because like, oh yeah, I got so much stuff going on. It's like, you need to prioritize this because like, what are we doing?
No, and that's very like you said, it's not these abstract things that I'm making sure the house is clean. That's part of self-care because I was just talking to somebody about a depression room, what it looks like, and that's like if you never seen what a depression room looks like and you never heard of this terminology, I want you to Google it because it's one of the signals that'll show you if somebody that's around you is going through depression, that they're dealing with depression. So for everybody who's out there listening, I encourage you to go check that out. But those things play into, self-care. And when you're not doing those things, like doing things that make you happy, and when you're such a giver, and I know people who are like emotional givers and they're just like, they give all of their energy to people, they don't make time for themselves. Like you said, like for you have to make sure that you're taken care of because you're taking so much on of people that if you don't go make sure that you're good, you might be in the same cycle as some of the patients that you see or some of the clients that you see. And so and we just talked about that yesterday because I was like, man, that's crazy. The therapist goes sees the therapist. Like
I sure do. Yeah.
Like it's universal. Like, yeah, the therapist goes see the therapist. And like I had my mom, she was a nurse. And she always said that, for nurses, it's hard for them to be able to go see doctors and things of that nature because they spend so much of their time helping other people that they don't make time to make sure that their health is good and that, things of that nature. So we look at the people that are in the healthcare system, that are in the mental health system and bodily health system. It's just as important for us to go see them as it is for them to go see people who are like in their field. But one thing that you talked about was like really drew a light bulb in my head was that choosing your therapist is important. So what aspect of choosing your therapist is important? Like what criteria should somebody look for when they're going to go find a therapist?
It's a few things. The most important is knowing what you need to seek services for. Like, what's your beginning reason? Because, like I said, you always come with one thing and end up being like this whole different thing. But at least initially speaking, you know that the person that you're seeing has some type of experience or is under the supervision of somebody that has enough experience for you to get the care that you need. So, knowing what you're going for is important. Knowing the type of person that you would be most comfortable with beginning and most receptive to is important too. So like I only want to go to Black women for my therapist. I just need somebody that look like me. It helps me to feel more at ease, more comfortable. I don't want to be surprised if I find out some roundabout way my therapist is a Trump supporter. I don't got time for that. I just don't have time for it. Not saying that Black people can't be Trump supporters because unfortunately they are sometimes. But
We've definitely seen them. We've definitely seen them.
but I just need to start off with somebody who I feel like can really understand where I'm coming from. Now, I want people to be careful with that though, because again, just because they're of the same racial identity, gender identity of you, doesn't mean that they're then a qualified therapist or they know what they're doing. But I think that is still a good starting point. So
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I can't go see a man, or no, I can't go see this type of person, whatever.
Yep.
So you know what you're going for. You know what you kind of want them to look like. Then you want to ask them like, okay, where did you go to school? What's your style? And how do you think that you can help me? What's a realistic timeline? Now, don't go into the people office like, oh yeah, in 2 months or 3 months, I expect everything to be changed.
Right.
6 months to a year is when you start to see like some substantial changes. Hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
That depends on how engaged you are in the process as well. And then another, if they take your insurance, that's important too, because a lot of therapists now, especially private practices, are moving past accept insurances and just doing private pay. But there are still therapists out there who accept insurance. And then lastly, just making sure you feel like the person that you go see, you're able to build a relationship with them and trust, and being able to say like, no, I don't like that, or you guys can have open communication. Now, some red flags to look out for
Uh-oh.
is if you feel like the therapist, sometimes self-disclosure, meaning like us telling you about us, is beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
because it can just help build relationship and relate. But if you notice that you having a 50-minute session and 30 minutes of your session is your therapist talking about themselves, you're paying them to have therapy. Like you're their therapist at that point. It's like
Has
they're
that happened before?
not to me, but I've heard that it happened to people. I haven't really, but like
That's
you
crazy.
right, like that's no. Or if you feel like your therapist is judging some of the stuff that you do. Now there gets a point where you can ask your client, like, I don't think that this is beneficial behavior. Why are
Mm-hmm.
we continuing to engage in this? Or do you think that this is appropriate or not?
Right.
But in a very general sense, you still shouldn't feel judged. It's more so your therapist being concerned that you're not engaging or you're not doing healthy behaviors.
Right.
So if you feel judged, you feel like they don't listen to you, you feel like maybe they're a little bit overworked, because sometimes when you have to work in a behavioral health clinic,
Mm-hmm.
you do have like larger caseloads than a private person would. So if you like, I have to, we start from square one every session because they can't remember details. They seem tired. Like it just might be time for you to go to somebody else. Or if you, let's say you've been going for 6 months to a year and you don't feel like you're making any progress with honest effort, then it's like, okay, maybe I do need to find somebody else because this person isn't the right one for me. Because I know people have really horrific experiences with therapists,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like it's different from having a bad experience with a doctor because mental stuff is more personal. You know,
Yeah.
is it that wound is deeper. But yeah, don't feel like you got to divulge every single detail about you the first session or in the first 3 months. You got to tell everything. If it takes you a while to build trust, that's okay too.
Yeah,
But
you gotta protect yourself.
yeah, so because people like, oh, well, I feel like you're not forced. I don't force somebody to tell me anything. If it take us 3 or 4 months for you to feel like you need to trust me, one, I have to figure out what am I doing in our sessions to make you feel uncomfortable, and two, it's like, okay, I mean, I'm not going nowhere. Me Me personally, I don't plan on not being a therapist anytime soon. So, but yeah.
No, that's a great point. Especially the not having to divulge information, like because a lot of people, and I maybe I'm just speaking for me. A lot of people and me feel like when you go to therapy, it's just like you just got like they want you to just pour everything out. Like
Yeah.
like the therapist, just your therapist, and I just want you to just like tell me everything that's been wrong with you. Like, but it's not that. Like it's gonna take a while, and maybe that's a good thing that you have to build that rapport and you have to
Yeah.
build that trust with this person because therapy for some people is long term. It's 6 months, like you said, 6 months to a year, and so that you're not only like devoting time to, but devoting funds to. And so
Yeah.
you want to make sure you get the best out of it. You want to make sure, like you said, this person meets your criteria. If don't feel like this person really cares about what you're talking about, if you feel like this person is not really and I'm not speaking from a standpoint of somebody who went to therapy. I'm speaking from a standpoint of somebody who's concerned about going to therapy. And
Yeah.
so these are the things that I'm thinking about. Like, man, I want to make sure this person like is somebody who I can talk to and somebody who I can really like create a rapport with, and not just somebody who's because sometimes you go to the doctors and like you tell them like what's wrong with you, and you can tell that they really don't care. They just want
Yeah.
to give you
Yeah.
this here script
And get you
because
off their face. Yeah.
yeah. And thank you for showing up. I know I was 15 minutes late, but here's this script. I'm sorry that your back hurt. Here's this script to make your leg stop hurting. Like, but I said my back hurt. Right. So here's the script and goodbye. And then you leave out of there feeling like I don't feel like I got the best care. I don't feel like I got really much out of this. And I've had that happen to me. Um, and then you have to go find a different doctor because it is like this person don't have my best interest at heart. And so with therapy and mental health, that's even more the reason why you need to have that that piece. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. We had to talk about this yesterday, and like I said, Kourtni is just like she's a G, y'all.
Oh Lord.
Like she tells it like it is. I love the way she says things because it really brings a broader spectrum to understanding how to go about, especially things in mental health, how to go about them. Because the way she talks about therapy, like I've never had anybody explain it that way. And I think this is probably the second conversation that me and you have ever had about therapy.
Yeah.
So great points as it concerns like the criteria that a therapist needs to meet. Because it's not just, you go see this one person and that's it. Because a lot of people think that it's final.
Yeah.
But it's really like an ongoing thing. So you might have to go to 2, 3, 4 people before you find your match. It's just like swiping left on a date nap. Instead of Tinder, it's therapy. Like,
And then people, please schedule a consultation. You can schedule a consultation like a 15-minute meeting with somebody that you think you will want to be a prospective therapist. You
mm-hmm.
can ask some questions, like the basic questions I laid out. You don't really have to divulge too many details. You can say, "Oh, I'm going to therapy because I want to work on my self-esteem, or because I have issues with my family." Like, you keep it real vague. But the 15-minute consultations allow you to get a better vibe and feel for who they are, and if you think you want to build on that relationship. Don't let people be like, "Oh, well, I don't do consultations. I only do intakes." And it's like, you don't want to. I can have a like. What do you mean? That's like a customary thing, unless they are in a clinic. In that case, the clinic is making that rule. They aren't as the therapist, but don't be afraid of consultations. I
Right.
encourage them. I like to have all the people as prospective clients sign up for consultations before intake. Some people start off with intakes. I don't really mind it. But if you're on the fence, do the consultation.
That's fair. That's fair. That way, like we were talking about yesterday, you don't waste that time,
Yeah.
going through all of this and then realizing like, man, this person really not good for me, or this person really don't have what seems like the time for me and my things that I want to talk about, or things I want to discuss with this person, really seek help for. So
Right.
that's a good point. My next question for you is: what are some stigmas surrounding mental health and therapy that you've seen debunked? Because you've been working at this quite a bit, and like you said, you went to school at the school that I will not mention on this podcast because we don't talk about the U of M on here. We don't talk about them on here. It's Sparty all day.
Go
No, I
blue.
did not attend.
Go blue in case they want to pay for my PhD program. Go
Hey,
blue.
listen, this is the plug podcast. I'm changing the name because just plug just plug what you want in here.
Period.
If you become a guest, you just plug whatever your wants and needs. You just throw them out there.
Go blue because I'm trying.
But so, what are some? Getting back on track. Sorry about that. But what are some stigmas surrounding mental health and therapy that you've seen like debunked? Like some things that maybe you've thought during like your studies and during like just working at this that you've thought like, oh, I thought that it was going to be this way, but it's actually another way.
You talking about like as my experience as a therapist, or like how people perceive therapy?
How people perceive therapy.
I think, well, stigma related is, I don't think that people really understand what mental health, like mental health and mental health disorders is and are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that a lot of times people put the responsibility on themselves for a lot of things that are not necessarily their doing. Now, there does come a time in your therapeutic journey where you have to understand that you're an active participant in your life and not a victim.
Yep.
You can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you respond to how they behave, right?
Right.
So there is room for that. But I think that a lot of times I notice with people who've experienced a lot of trauma or a lot of neglect, they tend to internalize that. And so they get to therapy and they like, well, I just need to learn how to be better and stop doing this. Or people have problems with attention deficit disorder, or I'm just unorganized and I'm lazy and I procrastinate, or people who are depressed and it's like, oh, I just have this issue. And I'm like, no, you're actually depressed. And they're like, right, no, but I need to stop being lazy. And it's like, no, you're not understanding. If you're depressed, you're not lazy, girl. You're just going through it and you don't have the energy. So I think the biggest stigma is just people kind of internalizing it and not seeing mental illness as like a true illness, like a true disorder. It's like if, I don't know, if somebody has a illness that limits their vision, you won't say like, oh, it's your fault or whatever, or you don't need to take your medication, or you don't got to go do your treatments, or you shouldn't have this surgery.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing. If you're depressed, like severely depressed, and you're having thoughts that you don't want to be here anymore, you need to go to treatment. You need to go talk to somebody. You need to like reach out and have all these things. Like if you're really going through a crisis and you're not feeling your best and it just is a chore for you to get out of bed, why would you think that you'll be able to participate in work? And I think that along with that stigma comes a lot of shame from things that you can do when you're not always mentally well. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to take responsibility for how you harm people in the ways that you don't show up because of your mental illness. But I think that we need to give more people grace about some of the stuff that they may do that's not always, I wouldn't say positive, but that's not always acceptable, right? People are okay with you being depressed if you only sit in a room and cry, maybe overeat a little bit. Right. But if you don't pay your bills, or if you don't talk to your friends, or if you lash out on people, because sometimes when people are depressed, especially Black people, it can show up as like anger or irritability. Like when people exhibit those traits, then it's like, oh my God, like they're the worst person to ever walk the earth's crust. Right. So it's just like really combating the misconceptions about what mental illness actually is and how it shows up. And then having everybody, like people that you know, yourself, kind of reevaluate how you perceive other people's behavior. So the biggest one is really just people not understanding what mental health is about. And also I think with, as far as stigmas go and mental health, it's just like all therapists are the same. And like if there's something wrong with you when you do need help. Like you're just a defective person who can never go back to quote unquote normal. That's even a thing that exists, if
Right.
that makes sense. It's like, oh, I don't want to be like I'm crazy. And it's like, girl, you need help. Why are you even worried about that right now? Like we're in a crisis,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? So yeah.
No, and I've come to figure out or find out that calling somebody crazy is not like people use crazy as a very generic statement and
Yeah.
we label it on anything, just like the word toxic. The word, like, people can be toxic, but there's
So tired of
something.
hearing it.
You said what?
I'm so tired of hearing that. Oh, they
I'm
toxic.
man, listen, I am so tired of hearing the word toxic. Like, it literally is overused. And honestly, I blame social media for it. I blame the popularity that, once we find a new word on social media that's like that sounds like it's very fitting. Like,
Yeah.
people decide like, okay, this is the word that's hype right now. Let's use it. Uh like, toxic, it's more than just like this person who exhibits this behavior that is just unbecoming. And
Yeah.
uh they do this thing like no, toxic is gaslighting. There's a better word that you can use. Toxic is people who are just immoral,
Yeah.
people who just like are way more than just toxic. Like, toxic is not even a good umbrella to utilize for certain people's behavior. And so I say all that to say that when we use the word crazy, it's not that this person is crazy. This person needs help because their, mental faculties are unstable. The
Yeah.
things that they have going on in their mind are is not lining up to a place to where they can function behaviorally like what you would consider normal. After taking this past term, I've taken psychology, and me and you were just talking about this yesterday. I know I say that a lot during this podcast, but literally, y'all, we just had a podcast yesterday.
Yeah. Really, truly, yeah.
Because once me and K Money get to talking, listen, we gonna be talking. So, um, we were talking about that and just how like people really love to use these like hype words to call people crazy or whatever the case may be. But it's deeper than that. It's deeper than them being crazy. Like, it's deeper than them like, oh, this person is weird. No, they're not weird, bro. It's just that what's weird is your outlook on them. What's weird and crazy is how, instead of like understanding how
Mm-hmm.
this person is and what this person is going through, you much rather label them and set them aside. But society has been through that already. Society has been through the phase of pushing people aside because they're not what we deem normal or what we deem sane. Um, but instead of talking about that person and saying that this person is this, that, and the other, one, pray for them, and two, just like encourage them to seek help, encourage them to look for help, encourage them to, look for people who are open and licensed professionals to get them help. And so, with me saying that, I also wanted to ask, do you feel that people who are ignorant to therapy and mental health try to um find like these quick, easy fixes for people who need therapy? And I guess make that, because that seems like a lot. Do you think that people think that there's like this easy fix to
Yeah.
mental health? Like, it's just
Yeah.
one answer and that's it.
Yeah. Like, yes. Short answer is yes. I definitely do. I think that people feel like, now I will say this, even though I'm an advocate for therapy, I'm really an advocate for people finding healing in a way that makes sense for them, especially culturally. Because there are some different cultures who have healing and spiritual practices that help them to arrive at the same conclusion, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I do think that people feel like they can read a book. It's kind of like that thing where you on Instagram, somebody like, I read The Art of How Not to Give a F, and I decided that day that I'm gonna change my life, and I'll get up at 6 a.m. every morning, I'll work out, and I'm going to work out, and then that's why I'm successful, and that's why you're puny, and like, it's like this whole weird thing, and it's like, girl,
I call it the Andrew Tate syndrome, but yeah.
yes, you grow up and be a man, and it's like, are you okay, girl?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you're okay. Like it seems
Mm-hmm.
like you need help. And so, yeah, I do think a lot of times people are looking for short things or small things they can tell people to feel better. Because if we're being honest, emotions and healing and vulnerability and all of the things and honesty with yourself is like ugly and it's brutal
Yeah.
and it's like violent. Like going on
Facts.
a healing journey and like confronting yourself and confronting people in your life and like doing it's such a violent process. Like
It
not in
is.
a physical sense, but like emotionally violent. And it's hurtful and it's ugly and you feel ugly and you leave therapy looking ugly sometimes, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's necessary. And it's like when you kind of go through grief. I recently seen like a little clip, like a YouTube short of Lauren London talking about grief. And she was like, when Nipsey first died, it was like she was in this dark tunnel and she was by herself and she didn't feel like anybody was around her. And the only thing she could see was like this long, long tunnel and a little light. And she's like, I had to go through the tunnel. You can't discount your experience. You got to keep going through it. And
Right.
I just think that going through it it's worth it, but it's really difficult for people to do because it's easier for me to try to see it, say, I read this book. Now I'm gonna work out and get up, and my life is completely changed. It's
Mm-hmm.
easier to do that than to like really look at yourself, and not even physically, but like really look at yourself and say, how I am right now is ugly because I'm not showing up for myself, or I'm letting my trauma speak. I'm not, like I
Yep.
got myself closed off. It's violent.
Yep.
And so I get it, but to answer your question, yes, people feel like, oh, I had a prayer one time, and then I worked out at Planet Fitness, and ever since then, it's like, girl, give me a break.
It's more to it than that. And that's
Yeah,
why, like when you said that like addressing people and addressing the things in your life gets ugly. If anybody listened to the last episode of Tough Conversation, I talked about communication and how when you communicate with people, sometimes you like, and when you communicate with yourself, you have to be real because in
yeah,
that being real, you oftentimes say things that is contrary to your own popular belief and others' popular belief because, and those all work hand in hand with, seeking mental health care and communication is that sometimes you have to the biggest person you need to keep it real with, like you can lie to everybody else
yeah,
and they might fall for that,
yeah,
but maybe not the people that know you, and even the people that might know you, might even fall for that. But keeping it real with yourself, like what, I got a problem, like, and I really had to come to that understanding, like what, I have some problems that I need to work out, and you know God is pushing me to work these problems out and seek help for these problems. It's great to pray and it's great to seek God, but God is also putting people in your life to help you on your journey. It can't just
yes,
all be on Him. It gotta
right,
be, it gotta be you doing, like we talked about yesterday, doing some work in it as well. And so that's where I got that question of, is there like that one stop shop fix? People think that I'm gonna put some WD-40 on these rusty thoughts and everything just
yeah,
gonna like run like it don't work that way.
no,
You can't just, think that you're gonna read a book and it's gonna have all the answers, to your mental faculties being all messed up, and then tomorrow you're gonna wake up and be like, well, I want to get up and go to the gym, and I feel like, what, I might sign up for that 5K. Like, no, fam, no, it don't work.
literally. People have 30-year, 40-year, 50-year careers in mental health. If it was really that easy, nobody would last more than 1 year. Now, people don't last more than 1 year because of other stuff, but it's not out of a lack of clients. I can tell you that.
Say the outpour is the outpour is there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's so like y'all. listening out there in podcast land, listen, the Pookie and them, auntie, whoever and them, mama, whoever, sister, whoever, brother, whoever, who's telling you, like, man, just come talk to me, fam. I got you. I've been through some things and I've been around the block a couple times. Like, yeah, we know. That's because you was too drunk to find the house. But I stole that joke from somebody, but but those people who tell you those things, you need to seek licensed professional help. You need to seek licensed professional help. I'm gonna say it one more time. You need to seek licensed professional help. Mm-hmm. And before you do that, you need to be real about your reasoning for seeking this help, and you need to be real about the help that you need. Kourtni put it so elegantly. The hardest person sometimes to check is yourself, and the hardest person to check is your family, because you feel like you're obligated to just, feel these things, and it's okay that they don't not really cater to those things, but they don't acknowledge those things. No, you gotta just like you gotta set boundaries with your friends and things of that nature, you gotta set boundaries with your family. Like, you gotta set boundaries with your loved ones and yourself. Like, you know what? We're not doing this today. We're not. I know such and such said that, this is really important, but you know what? My mind is not where it needs to be to show up for this person. And that's like, you keep saying that, and that's sticking with me so much. Showing up for yourself, showing up for other people. Like, can you just explain that a little bit? Like, just showing up for yourself and showing up for other people.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out. Let's see, showing up for yourself. You know what? I'm gonna go personal. I was thinking about if I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it. I like whatever. Anybody who knows me knows I love talking about my feelings or anybody's feelings. I just love it. But showing up for yourself is basically, first of all, you deciding like, okay, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a point in time where they get tired. And when you get tired, you can either decide to go further into your delusion, your vices, whatever you're doing, or you can decide to do something different to give you something different.
Right.
Around the time right before I went to school to become a therapist, do my MSW program, I was like maxed out. I worked at my job and I felt like I put way too much into that job without it giving me anything back in return but disrespect, really, if we keeping it real. Like, they just didn't care for me, and I did anything and everything under the sun for that job. And I was like, I was so delusional. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Houston and I'm going to live there and I'm going to be happy and I'm going to find me a husband and I'm going to get me a house and it's going to be perfect. Yeah. And so that was literally right before the pandemic. It's like, no matter what I did, no matter how many jobs I applied for, no matter how many interviews I went on, nobody wanted to hire me. I'm like, dang, I guess I got to stay in Michigan. And then that's when the pandemic happened. So thank the Lord for that. Mm-hmm. And before then, I had done a lot of groundwork on like really confronting some of my traumas. But I feel like once you get to a certain point in your healing journey with like stuff that other people have done to you, you have to then confront yourself and take accountability for like how you show up and why you do some of the things you do, and you come to terms with like, okay, even though somebody did this to me, now it's like time for me to stop also being a negative person and having like really maladaptive or toxic behaviors, Mm-hmm. So around like the quarantine, I really had to just start reworking what I thought was like showing up for myself and self-care. And like when I went through my MSW program, it was so difficult. Oh my God, it was so difficult. Like I had a research class. Oh, that's trauma. That's trauma. I was like, no joke, be at my computer like crying, like not understanding what's going on. Not like, and normally in that situation, I would quit. Mm-hmm. Like, I would just find something else that I'm good at because, I'm too hard. I'm good at a few things, I do things. I would like quit and just find something else and find any excuse under the sun to like not do it and not push myself, but I had to show up for myself. I had to decide like this is something I want to do. And if I truly want to do it, I'm not going to do it because of something out of my control. This is in my control. How
Mm-hmm.
I decide to attack this class, this is in my control.
Right.
And so it's like showing up for yourself is pushing yourself forward and not allowing yourself to um make excuses, not allowing yourself to not treat people the way that you want to, not allowing yourself to ignore people that that love and care for you, not allowing yourself to ignore the things that you need to work on. Like again, is making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you eat how you want to, understanding like at some point in time you don't have bad finances because you don't make enough. You have bad finances because you want to spend however much whenever you want to spend it. That's why you in that position
You
talking to
talking to me?
myself. Oh, I'm talking to myself. Talking to myself. You know what I'm saying? Because I truly did buy my Beyonce tickets, but that was it. I'm done. I ain't doing no more. You know, so it's just like it's stuff like that program and that process really showed me what it meant to like show up for myself, because I couldn't be everything for everybody. I had to be everything for Kourtni. I had to make sure that she was okay. I had to make sure she got enough sleep. She was doing her assignments. She was checking in with herself. She was hanging out with friends because she needed that break. Like
Yep.
showing up for yourself is really you creating boundaries, creating space, and doing what you need to do to feel your best in order for you to show up for others. Because there does come a point in time where you have to pour back into people the way that they pour into you. Because, yeah, it is, yeah. Showing up for yourself is hard. Excuse me. It's hard.
That's
It's
facts.
hard.
That's
Gotta
facts.
do it though.
That's facts. Thank you for that explanation because man, that like for a lot of people who out here listening and watching this, you see the genuineness, you hear the genuineness, like, and you have to. It's important for you to show up for yourself. It's important for you to show up for those that are around you who love you and care
Yeah.
about you. And part of that is doing the things that you need to do to help yourself be a better person, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. Because somebody needs you, somebody wants
Yeah.
you, somebody is tied to your success and your failures, and recognizing where you're successful at and failing at is important. At showing up for yourself. So Kourtni, thank you for that. Before we go, I just
Mm-hmm.
want to ask one more question, and then yeah. So my last question for you is, what would you say to someone who wants to go down the same path as you? Somebody who wants to become a therapist or a social worker. Um, what would you, I guess, give them as keys to the road?
One, we welcome you. I love you. I'm so glad you decided to join us, team. So, one is making sure that when you embark on your social work / therapy journey, because you can be a psychologist, a psychologist, a counselor, blah 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 blah, family, what is it, family and marriage counselor, and do all those things too.
Mm-hmm.
But making sure that you keep your own issues in check. Like you go into the process being aware of what your blind spots are, your vulnerabilities. Because if you don't, then you open yourself up to being too involved with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I want people to really like be aware of why they're taking this journey and which route looks best for them and
Yep.
which profession has the best philosophy. Because again, you can be a psychologist, you can be a clinical social worker, you can be a psychiatrist, you can be a licensed counselor. And even though we all do the same things, we all have different approaches to get to the same point.
Right.
All of it should be evidence based interventions and the like in research, but the overall vibe of the professions are different. So you want to make sure you're picking something that is in alignment with what you think and how you feel. And then also understanding that your job is not to fix people or is not to save people. You cannot make anybody do anything. You can't force them to listen to you. I mean, really, they shouldn't be listening to you. They should be listening to themselves. But I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times you get in this rut where it's like, oh, it's not working. They should do this and you can't do that. People are entitled to make bad decisions.
Mm.
People have the right to
That's a
make bad
concept.
decisions. Like you have to really be hands off. The only time I'm like I need to intervene is if I feel like people are not being safe and they'll be physically or significantly emotionally harmed. But in a
Right.
very real sense, even if you work in substance use and addiction, people have a right to make bad decisions, and you have to honor people's decisions because we all have free will. You can't make anybody do a certain thing or what you perceive as the right thing, right? Everybody's an expert in their own experience.
Right.
So as long as you make sure the philosophy in the profession fits for you, you are mindful of what your blind spots are academically and personally, and you understand that you're not there to fix people. I would say the last thing is to make sure that you're doing it because you authentically want to help people. I know that with mental health becoming more popular, a lot of people, well, I won't say a lot, but some people may be trying to get into the profession. I don't know. Now I haven't met anybody, but
Mm-hmm.
I can only assume if it starts to like progress more that sometimes people are like, oh, I want to make some money and blah 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 blah. This ain't the job
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
This ain't the job for that because this job is going to take more from you than it's willing to give. And otherwise. And so you have to be sure that you're doing it because you want to do it and you have a strong mission for why, because that's what's going to keep you waking up every day and showing up for your clients. That's what's going to keep you every day waking up and showing up for yourself. And that's what's going to keep you tied and tethered to like what you're doing in the first place. Because it can be easy to get caught in like the hurricane of your problems, people problems, and like this whole thing. And then yeah, once you figure out your particular approach, you figure out how that profession gets licensed and works. Find you a mentor if you can, and never overestimate your skills. Always underestimate them a little bit, because again, this is people's real lives.
Yep.
Like you not. I mean, when I worked at Texas Roadhouse, if I was on the grill and I messed up, the worst thing they could do is ask for another steak. If you mess up at work, you can severely traumatize people and you're supposed
Yeah.
to be helping them, not hurting them. That is so important. Please always underestimate a little bit. Never overestimate your skills because people's lives, not even exaggerate, not even a teensy bit, can literally be in danger. So that's my little speech, my little Easter speech.
Melo-
I'm done. That's it. Yeah.
Not the Easter speech, bro. This.
Easter speech. I can't wait to Easter. I'm so hungry. I can't
Oh
wait.
my.
Oh my goodness. We got like 3 more weeks. I know for a fact.
Oh my God, yo, the Easter speech just killed me.
Yeah.
No, that is the next holiday that we about to get some good grub going on.
I
So
can't wait. I'm making lamb chops. They've been sitting in my freezer. I'm making lamb chops and mac and cheese. I am. Yeah. I
man,
cannot.
you having a bougie Easter. You know, some folks just throw some, meatloaf in the oven and
I want some lamb. I want some mashed potatoes. I want some whipped feta. I want.
that's hilarious. For y'all who don't know, Kourtni is I'm gonna just call it a world class chef,
No,
world class.
it's not. Because if
A
they see
world.
people be like, he's
Listen,
a liar. I do what I can when I
listen. She didn't cook for some folks that y'all probably know,
can.
some
That is
celebrities
true.
that y'all probably know, and she is very modest about her skills. If y'all find her on Instagram, we will. I'm gonna put the Instagram in the description tag, so you guys can follow her for more information and reach out to her if you have concerns about mental health and therapy. But if you go on her page, listen, the food that she posts that she makes is ridiculous. I was just telling her yesterday, I was like, listen, yo, I want to grow up and be like you when it comes to food and what I eat because I don't care. Like I toast my bread for my peanut butter and jelly sandwich and think that that's unique.
That's fancy. That's fancy. I don't do that. That's fancy. I literally just had a plain Uncrustable, and I'm like, I should have toasted this, but I was hungry, so I just ate it.
Like she showed me this dish last night, and what was it? What's it called?
Bronzino. I had my oven roasted bronzinis because that's
Listen,
what
I'm seeing this, and for y'all who just listening, look up Bronzini. I don't know how to spell it.
it's I think it's Branzino. Yep, Bronzinos.
See, the way she told me that she had to make this dish, I'm just like, you lost me at the first step. Because if it ain't microwave 1, 2, 3.
Oh no, honey.
No, I do get my cook on, but man, Kourtni is just multi-talented when it comes to things. Definitely a wealth of knowledge in the aspects of mental health and therapy and all of those things that encompass that. So I really encourage you guys to check her out on Instagram. Kourtni, give them your Instagram and where they can find you at on social media.
Okay. So on my Instagram, hold on, because my personal Instagram is Coco B Cooks. So it's KOKOB_Cooks_. That page is private. My friends and my family. But if you send me a message on there, especially if you need help with like mental health resources or you have questions, I check my messages too. So it's perfectly fine. And then I have one for my podcast, which is Complainers Corner Pod, which is literally Complainers Corner POD. And that's the one that you can just follow in general. But either of those profiles, I'll answer a message if people send them to me. Yeah, I'm real. I want to say I'm real. I want to say I'm real nice. I'm a kind person. And I am friendly. So, yeah, I like talking to people. So, people can message me. I ain't going to be like, why are you talking to me? Like, I'll be like, okay, what's up, period? What you want to talk about?
Hit you up. I heard you on that podcast, and I just want to.
Don't be nervous because I ain't going to be like, who are you? I'm going to be like, okay, like, what do you want to know?
Who at Debo know?
Right, like, who are you? What do you want? Like, I'm not like that.
Yeah, no, she's really a kind-hearted person, and any information that you guys need in terms of therapy and mental health, definitely young in the game. Young in the game. We were just talking about this yesterday. Young in the game when it comes to this stuff, and just an enlightening personality. So hit her up on Instagram. If you have questions about mental health or questions about seeking a therapist, or maybe you want her to go into more details because maybe we didn't go into the details on here. But do you have anything that you want to say? Any plugs that you want to put out before we sign off here?
No, not necessarily. One thing is my podcast hopefully, it's gonna be coming back in July. July it's gonna be this year, so September is gonna be the latest.
Mm-hmm.
But July is my goal. It just depends on what happens with a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, Complainers Corner podcast is coming back better and more ratchet than normal. We love that.
Had to throw that out there. Listen, if you haven't, and Complainers Corner podcast is, don't get me wrong, is on Apple Podcast and Spotify.
It's on Apple. It's on Spotify. I think it's on Amazon Music or Amazon Podcast. I don't know. Okay. If you go on the website, it has a link tree to all of the places that you can listen to it to.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to it on. It's like a lot of places that I don't know. It ain't sound right, but yeah, it's on anywhere really that people will listen to podcasts. But I know people mostly do either Spotify or Apple Music.
Okay. Yeah. So if you haven't listened to Complainers Corner podcast, I'd strongly encourage you. And I'm not one of those people who try to hog the audience because listen, when it comes to the world of podcasts, people listen to whatever they feel is necessary. So if you haven't got a chance to listen to Complainers Corner podcast, I promise you that first season was awesome. Was awesome.
Thank you.
I loved it. The episode with what's her name? Dr. What's her
Which
name?
one?
The one.
Was it the one about grief?
Yes.
Professor Deborah Mattinson.
Yes. That one hit home with me very heavily. I'm not an emotional person. At least I don't like to think I am. But but that episode was fire. And I encourage y'all to go listen to it. I encourage y'all to check out the full season. Don't just listen to my podcast. Listen, if you got another podcast that you're interested in, and I'm going to plug them on here. So definitely go check out Complainers Corner podcast. Definitely check her podcast out when it comes out later this year. I can't wait for it because I'm going to be tuned in, listening like, yeah, she said it was going to be ratchet. No, just
No, but for real, I'm keeping it real. Like, we ratchet over there. Like, we.
And that's the one thing I love about you. You keep it real. You keep it real. You keep it real. Like, I'm going to tell y'all. So I'm going to say this story and then we're going to sign off. So when I first met, or when I first, like, was conversing with Kourtni, it's so funny because Kourtni is a very punctual person. She don't play about her time. So I would never, and she know what I'm about to talk about.
I know, because I am a punctual person. Yeah.
I would never forget. We were setting up trying to like figure out how we was going to have a conversation before I was doing one of the podcasts that I used to do, or not really a podcast. It was just a live video stream for a clothing brand that I had. And I remember I accidentally forgot to text her that I was going to be an hour late. And then I text her an hour later and she was just like, yeah, that's cool. But, you know, just next time. And like in a very stern way, in a very yo mama type of way.
Oh my God.
She was like, that's cool. I just want to make sure that, you know, furthermore, she was using all the transition words. Furthermore, in addition to,
period,
you make sure this don't happen again. I felt I got a whooping from my mama. I was like, yeah, you're right.
That's assertive communication. It's like I don't got to do too much, but like just so you know, going forward, that I appreciate my time.
And listen,
just let me
know. And I love her for it because that's a good friend. Somebody who is okay with telling you, you know, when you messing up a little bit. And, you know, especially starting off in a new friendship, like you want to make sure you lay those ground rules. Like, hey, bro, you know, just get it together. So I appreciate her 100%. Once again, Kourtni, thank you. Thank you so much. I like whenever we talk, I always feel so hype and energetic because like I be bouncing off your energy. you be on it, bro. You be on it. So I just want to say that's all that we have time for today. And once again, I just want to thank you, Kourtni, for your time. It's always a pleasure being able to converse with you. I call him my beloved friend.
Yes, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.